Hey everyone, welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. On today's episode, I want to run through some free agent targets for the Broncos. ESPN put out a really cool article of their top 50 free agents, and some of them they linked right to Denver, so we'll take a look at those guys, and we'll also look at some other players that the Broncos could have some interest in. Now, before we get any further in today's show, though, right off the jump, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We are trying to get to 33,000 subscribers. Obviously, I need your help. It's the last day of the month, so one big push to 33K for free daily Broncos content on your feed. The first free agent target I want to unpack is running back Aaron Jones of the Minnesota Vikings. Longtime Green Bay Packer, had a little bit of a late career, not breakout, but resurgence after missing some time with the Packers with injuries. This past season in Minnesota, 1,100 yards on the ground, adding over 400 through the air, 7 total touchdowns. Guy was pushing 30 years old and arguably had second best season of his NFL career. Now, I'm bringing up Jones because Jeremy Fowler brought up the Broncos, saying, expect Denver to look for a versatile back to bolster Sean Payton's offense. Could Jones fit the mold despite his age? He's the kind of runner/pass catcher who just might. I don't think I need to get in much detail when I say the Broncos need running back help. It was one of their biggest weaknesses this past season. Javonte Williams led the team in rushing, and he had a little under 550 yards. We're talking about someone who had double that production this past season in Minnesota. So my guess is this is one of the biggest priorities for Sean and George Payton. I do like Aaron Jones, the player. The age is a little bit of concern for me, but for being honest, the last good running back for the Broncos was Latavius Murray. I mean, he's the last player to rush for over 100 yards in a game 2 years ago, and he was over 30 when he did that. So I think we got to take like a Creed approach here and no ageism whatsoever, and do not leave a single stone left unturned just because he's 30 years old. Next player is 49ers safety Talanoa Hufanga, the former All-Pro with the 49ers, who has unfortunately just been decimated with injuries the last 2 seasons. And it's a bummer for him going into free agency, a contract season that he has his year cut short. But Hufanga is one of the best safeties in football when healthy. That's not really up for debate. But the question is, how often is he going to be healthy just based on his track record over the last couple of years? This past season, he played 7 games for the Niners, didn't make any big splash or impact play. In 2023, limited to 10 games. But before that, 17 games, 15 games. And you can see the impact he had on the field, especially in 2022 when he was an all-pro safety. He was a 5th-round draft pick, and if you're looking for safeties, you can find quality safeties later in the draft. When healthy, though, the guy is an elite safety. And he's an all-pro, and it shows it. But in free agency, you are always looking for one thing before anything else: availability. If you're going to give someone a contract to come play for your team, the expectation is they play. Now, how well they play, we can talk about later. But if they're not even on the field, we're not even getting a cent of the contract given to that player. So, when healthy, awesome. If you have concerns over the injuries, I understand. Personally, I'd be on board with signing Hufanga. You can find good safeties, like I said, later in the draft, but I feel like the window is starting to open a little bit for the Broncos with how well Bo Nix played and him being on his rookie contract. So I wouldn't mind going to the dessert bar and picking up a safety or running back, guys that you tend to find later in the draft or cheaper in free agency. If you're in the midst of a rebuild, those aren't the number one positions to build around. But when you've got a playoff caliber team like the Broncos had, I think it's okay to go find a nice safety or a good running back early in the draft or in free agency. We have 3 more players to keep an eye on, but first things first, a big special shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Plus, you can filter by city on Game Time. So if you want to go to an Avs game or a Nuggets game, I implore you to download the Game Time app and take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Create an account and use code chatsports for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Third player, it is Saints tight end Juwan Johnson. In terms of likeliness that the Broncos sign these guys, I think it goes Jones, the most likely, Johnson, second, Hufanga, third. So with Johnson being a former Sean Payton player, we have to do our homework on him because we know there is a direct flight from New Orleans to Denver for all of his former players and coaches, and I would not rule out him bringing more former players of his up to Mile High. This past season for New Orleans, 50 grabs, 548 yards, and 3 touchdowns in an offense that saw 3 different quarterbacks start, and neither or any of them played all that well. So I see 548 yards from 3 different quarterbacks. That's, about 5 times better than the number 1 tight end for the Broncos, Adam Trautman. I'm all ears for Mr. Johnson coming to Denver. It's also a deep tight end class in the draft. You've got Tyler Warren, you got Colston Loveland. I'm blanking on the guy's name from Bowling Green. Shame on me. Starts with the H. Someone will tell me in the comment section. So if you want to wait till the draft, I get it. Personally, I'd be willing to go with both. Go in free agency. Dip in the draft, right? I don't think you're signing Johnson to be this team's next 5, 6, 7-year long-term tight end. But the tight end position is so important in Sean Payton's offense, and I think that he was able to overcome having very little tight end production this past season, but that's not sustainable for the way he wants to operate. So I would not rule out him going to free agency, linking up with a former player of his, and turning to the draft. Now, if you had to pick one, which one would it be? Historically, tight ends take a little bit longer to develop in the NFL. Don't believe me? Go look at Travis Kelce's first year or 2 in the league. I think you'd be blown away from the lack of production. Injury too, but still. I personally am typing door number 3. Yes, all the above. Fourth guy on the docket, it is Darius Slayton, the former Giant. I say former, likely former Giants wide receiver. Another day 3 draft pick out of Auburn, and Slayton comes off a disappointing season, but I don't want to hold it against him because he, like Johnson, was victim to awful quarterback play from the New York Giants. 573 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, look at the disparity between the targets and the receptions. I don't think it's because Slayton was dropping a bunch of passes. Maybe a few, but it's probably because he had Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, and our old friend Drew Lock as his quarterback. But he was able to make a couple of big splash plays for, Big Blue. 14.2 yards per reception, and I think the Broncos are always looking for playmakers, guys that can stretch the field. That's the buzzword. That's the trend that offenses are looking for. Explosive. That's the number 1 keyword when talking about players. Can you be a playmaker for us? And I don't think Slayton is someone we should look at as a Marvin Mims level playmaker, but he's shown the capability of helping an offense stretch the field. 5th and final free agent target from this article. It is 49ers linebacker Dre Greenlaw. I think we all remember Greenlaw from last year's Super Bowl when, unfortunately, as he was getting ready to come onto the field, he popped his Achilles, and as a result, he missed a lot of 2024. Now, when you talk about the Broncos linebacker room, they could be in the market for adding someone like Dre Greenlaw. Cody Barton is scheduled to be a free agent, so if they don't want to bring him back for some reason, they're likely going to be turning to free agency to bring somebody in. Maybe not a big name or an expensive name, but I expect the Broncos to make some type of transaction at the linebacker spot. And Greenlaw is a player that I'm very interested in because he has shown to be a high-level player when healthy. And I think he's very versatile. He's a great all-around athlete. When he went down in the Super Bowl, their pass coverage went down the drain. And that paved the way for the 49ers coming back. So he's good in pass pro, which teams love because you need athletic, roaming linebackers in the modern NFL era since it's so pass-happy if you just have linebackers who can stop the run but can't do anything for you in pass coverage, they're not going to be on the field for very long. Now, similar to Hufanga, another 49er player who's been injured, only played 2 games this past season. He's young when he suffered the Achilles injury. I expect his body to make a full recovery. And by the time the Broncos sign him, he's 18 months removed from that Achilles pop. I'm feeling pretty good about his chances looking like the pre-injury player he was, which in 2023, 15 games, 5 tackles for loss, 120 tackles, 1.5 sacks. He was all over the field for the Niners, and I'm a big fan of his work. I would like this signing. I'd roll the dice on Greenlaw. I think that the upside is worth it, and you could get him for a little bit of a bargain because of only 2 games played this past season coming off the injury. He might fall off of some teams' radars, but he has not fallen off my radar. I still remember how impactful he was for the 49ers defense that went to the Super Bowl, and I'd love to see that in the middle of the Broncos defense. So we went over 5 players on today's show. I do want to hear from you. Name a player you think the Broncos should sign, whether it's one of those guys or someone else that left off. Of the 5 guys we talked about today, if I had to power rank my preference for signing them, I'd probably go Dre Greenlaw at number 1, Aaron Jones at number 2, just because they desperately need a running back, Juwan Johnson at 3, Hufanga at 4. I could swap Johnson, Hufanga. And then, who was our 4th guy we had? He's so unmemorable. Oh, Darius Slayton. Yeah, I'll put him at 5. Sorry, Darius. All right, that'll do it for us on today's episode. I'll see everyone tomorrow.